very excited about this conversation for a number of different reasons. How can we turn action, or sorry, how can we take insight and turn it into action and active? Right up, you know.
Well, I didn't hand it off real well either.
I was playing with the action activity thing, and then I was like, now hold on, insight.
Action. Hi, everybody. It's Peyton Griggers. I am an executive industry consultant, and here again today with my friend Adam Cross, and we're just kind of continuing our conversation of on the record, talking about life sciences and pharmaceuticals and the world we live in today, and how they kind of fall into the asset lifecycle intelligence portfolio of processes and suites and tools, and how we all can work together and use these tools together to kind of improve the performance and improve how we're taking care of our assets, and in return how they take care of us. So today we're going to kind of change it up a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about data silos and integration, and kind of how we start to put all the different pieces together in this big puzzle that goes across the asset lifecycle. So Adam and I just kind of dig into that a little bit and kind of see what we can come up with. So we're going to start about things, you know, like disconnected systems. We'll look at some strategies and tools maybe a little bit, and get Adam's input on some of those. You know, the beast that is compliance that we're always trying to manage, and how we are prepared for audits and have our records together, as well as protecting the quality and viability of our product, right? So we're going to kind of go through some of those things today, and we'll just kind of kick it off, and let's talk a little bit about, you know, why are data silos still such a big problem in pharma, right? We're you know, I've been in this space for 30, 35 years now, and just as things have evolved and turned, you know, we're still struggling a little bit with silos. Adam, what do you kind of think about that? You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, no, great point. And it's still, I've been fortunate enough, I guess, in my time, which makes me sound probably a lot older than I perhaps am. I don't know. But certainly across a number of different industries, have different approaches to this topic, right? And I think I think we've seen examples from other industries where they are probably a little bit further down the path in terms of what do we want to call them, digital backbones, digital threads, connected systems, interoperability, you name it, than perhaps pharma's been, which is interesting, right? I think there's a couple of obviously core facets that you already touched on in the introduction there, where there's just enormous potential for these organizations. One, from an operational standpoint, you know, looking at how we can make people more efficient, how we can put the right data in their hands at the right time so that they can ultimately make the right decision. But two, then, you know, the glaringly obvious one is from the compliance standpoint, right? You know, that ability to do two things effectively: mitigate potentially millions of dollars in risk, which would always be nice, but also reduce that kind of mandrolic effort to prepare and be ready for audits. And it does, you know, it does still strike me that there's still lots of work to do in this industry around connected systems and kind of some of the ecosystems that exist that have grown up over time. And I guess, you know, some of that's probably part the kind of compliance landscape in which you know, we all sit, and you know, creating those, you know, pockets of capability. And those pockets of capability quite often obviously get validated, locked in time, if you will. And then obviously business requirements evolve and change, and people have to think about, well, actually I need a new solution or capability or digital tool over here. You know, what do I do? Do I kind of go back over what I've done and unlock that validated system and then make some changes or effort to it? Or is it easier to kind of plug and play and, you know, put a new system in? I think that's probably contributed to, like I say, the rise of data silos in particular within this industry. Is that what you see as well?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a very key aspect of it. And I think by nature, people tend to navigate to focusing exclusively on their tasks and what they're kind of responsible for, right? So I think I have my department, or have my area, or I work in engineering, or I work in maintenance, or I work in operations, or I'm a planner and a scheduler. And you tend to see those silos there. It's like, here's my focus, and here's my job, and here's my task duties. And you know, I did a presentation a while back where we had a thing we called the maintenance triad, and we overlap safety, reliability, and maintenance. And you know, there's a huge overlap in the middle where all three of these things feed together, and you know, you can actually lay quality over the whole thing. It's going to penetrate throughout all of it. So I think when you back up a little bit and you start to look at the entire process, and you stop focusing just on, if I'm an MRO storeroom, you know, issues and returns and value on hand tends to be the things you kind of look at, right? Am I turning my inventory? Do I have what I need, and do I have the right values? But so many more things impact inventory, right? You look at a planner and a scheduler, and you look at a reliability engineer. Do I have a good bill of materials that I need? Have I identified what's going to be those critical parts? Have I identified how many of those critical parts I need to have? Have I identified what things roll over at multiple machines that I need to strategically place different places? All that directly impacts the performance of that inventory manager storeroom, but the KPIs never seem to get interlaced. So I think also really having a good business process and understanding you all depend on each other for success, and building the KPIs so that you hold each other accountable through your KPI. So my KPI as a planner scheduler should tie into that inventory KPI so that we're jointly successful and grow. So I think a little bit of a strategy in there, really thinking through the whole process, is key to breaking some of those barriers down too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think from an industry standpoint as well, the opportunity or the potential for, thinking like this is enormous. If you take, like I mentioned before, right, other industries, I would bet, I haven't got the facts in front of me, I wish I did, but I would bet that, assets are typically newer in this space. We're not seeing as many kind of older assets. And that means that, these newer assets are, better equipped to provide better information that, some of the reports and studies that we have done show that this industry invests more in digital tools than many other, comparable industries. So there's all the information that exists out there to be able to do better things with our assets, with more informed, more real-time, more accurate data. But again, I think this probably goes back to some of our previous discussions, right, around the upfront planning for what it is that we actually want to achieve from an asset management standpoint. That perhaps doesn't necessarily unlock that value. I think quite often we've seen some of these sort of digital tools and systems be used more as systems of record, right? To demonstrate that a particular activity or action is taking place at a particular time. And I think now we're starting to see that mindset shift of, we've got the kind of compliance side of it down. We can demonstrate that we are doing the right things. Now we need to think about, actually how can we leverage that data to improve outcomes and improve capabilities within our asset management operations.
No, absolutely. And you talk a little bit about the technology kind of changing and more stuff that's available and newer, more modernized things. As we start to look at OT a little bit more, right? And the OT, the improvement in OT and the kind of things our operational technology gives us now, and the ability to pull data directly off of the assets is so much stronger, and it tells us a lot more about its health. But again, we're talking about silos. How do we bridge OT and IT? How do we pull those things together and share information across those systems? A lot of times the machine's screaming over there, nobody sees it or nobody hears it, or some of the OT data is pulling through, but it's not getting to the right place to drive the right actions to fix it. So I think a key part of this is how we integrate these systems together to communicate that health, to have the right barriers and alarms and boundaries and actions and triggers, and that the OT technology can feed into some of traditional IT solutions and get across the network and get into an EAM to drive the work based off of the asset saying, hey, I don't feel good. So I think a stronger focus on how we integrate those systems is more important than ever to be able to leverage data that right now in a lot of cases just sits there. You're not doing anything with it.
Couldn't agree more. And I think having as much insight as you can possibly get is only valuable if that insight turns into action and activity on the back end. And like you say, unfortunately, quite often there's quite an air gap, right, between the capability that is monitoring the particular piece of equipment or the asset, and then the system that's going to tell somebody to go and do something, right, and do it in a particular manner.
Absolutely.
So, and
again, getting back to what's important too, because there's so much on those assets that some of it is noise, right? The ability to what's important enough to pass along, what should you not pass along. It's such an intricate balance of process and technology and decision trees as to how you feed this data along through the ecosystem to facilitate and drive it. So.
Absolutely, and it feeds back into what we were saying at the top there about the compliance standpoint, right? These operational systems are quite often, right, picking up, the alarms when things are starting to fall out of a particular tolerance. And, by nature, you're going to have to intervene or interact in some phase, right? So being able to connect those systems together into, like I say, a single system of record that captures the moment that an alarm was raised and the conditions that caused that alarm into then what the preceding actions and activities were, and being able to wrap all of that up into a nice report or documentation that can keep your auditors happy, and they can see from problem to problem resolution and all of the actions and activities in between, and who did what and when and how and signatures and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, that's super valuable, right? And again, I think quite often we sort of miss that opportunity by not having that kind of foresight in terms of, what is it that we actually want to, what is it we actually want to achieve?
Totally. And again, determining what are the key aspects of it, what are the key points, and you can have too many systems as well, right? Sometimes you can have too much data running around and feeding and flowing, because it all again ultimately comes back to that ROI, right? So in the end, we have to get to that overall equipment efficiency, right? We got to manage our quality, we got to manage our throughput, we got to manage our uptime, we've got to drive all those components, and in the end, all that has to lead to those improvements in those systems that we put in have to give us, return on investment of what we put in there. So I think it's such a key aspect to think about those processes and to optimize them to give us that optimal ROI too. So that's what makes the world go around, right? So, but all of these things we're talking about, they're going to impact, wrench time. They're going to impact your compliance and audit preparedness, right? How much time is spent on audits and compliance and reporting and proving out what we've done and having efficient methods and reports and processes to do that. That's significant ROI that is not directly tied to wrench time necessarily, but then you got all your inventory optimization, your PMO. So there's lots of areas we can impact there, and that ROI is real. I mean, just a few efficiency points will pay for a whole lot of work up front.
Millions of hours of labor. We've seen examples, right? We've worked with those organizations where literally millions of hours of labor every year can be saved and be diverted onto far more value-added tasks than just trying to keep on top of the admin. So
it's so much that the numbers are so big that people will roll their eyes at it, but it's
exactly
real.
that.
It's real, right? The efficiency is real, and you can prove that out with a good, well thought out methodology and metrics to kind of measure it. So cool. So talk a little bit about tools. What kind of tools? Any comments on tools and frameworks? How do we start to work on some of this system operability?
Yeah, I mean, without being too cliche about these things, I think obviously the rise of cloud-based systems has been able to facilitate a lot of this, and particularly cloud-based systems within pharma and true cloud, right? As we'll probably talk to it, and make sure that you can deliver these things in a manner that keeps obviously the quality group happy. But having scalable architectures like that can meet the demands of lots of interoperability and lots of network and data moving traffic moving across those networks has given rise to being able to, like I say, share that data, put it into the place that's needed with the people that need it. So I do think there is a thing to be explored about how the rise of SaaS in particular can provide that kind of bedrock upon which, like I say, you can build some of these capabilities.
Yeah, and we're talking about frameworks where we're kind of focusing on silos and bridging the gaps and integrations today. And I think it brings back the key point that one tool can't do it all. The asset lifecycle is a huge process from the standpoint of this capital planning and design and commissioning and the operational life of it, operations, decommissioning, performance optimization. I mean, you can't do it with one tool. So it's just too much. So there is a requirement to have these control systems and PDM sensors and OT technology and EAM systems to drive it, asset health applications to monitor it. So I think really understanding that framework and having strategic partners to help you build those integrations so that they do feed each other. We all have to eat, right? And the system it's got to be prepared to perform. So I think there's a lot that goes into looking at those key elements throughout the life cycle and putting the right tools in place to have them feed each other and talk appropriately to make us successful. So kind of it's an amazing process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, huge area of opportunity as we've already talked.
So kind of wrapping it up, what does good look like? I think I kind of hit on kind of what I thought it was there a little bit, but getting back to kind of where we kind of started this conversation 6-7 minutes ago, let's I think having that key strategy up front, that key process, knowing what tools you need, knowing how they integrate together, knowing how your people work together, and really kind of putting together that map to be able to think through strategically which tools you need in what areas and what they need to kind of tell each other, so to speak.
Yeah, and then from a data standpoint, making sure you've got those good solid foundations, right, upon which that you can leverage this data in its most meaningful fashion. And like you say, you're not just creating data and noise, right? Because data and noise isn't necessarily valuable. It's about creating information and insight. And I think having that that strategy up front absolutely supports making sure that what you're providing is actually insightful.
And that piece, we just, until you hit on it, we haven't really even talked about it, but data's the blood running through the system, right? And we should probably have a whole session here just talking about data and core data and the quality of data and preparing the data for AI to feed through the processes. So I think that's such a key element that maybe we get a chance to unpack that a little later in another talk.
Till next time, a whole new episode just spun out of this one. So perfect.
There you go. All right. Hey, well, thanks everybody. One more edition of On the Record, kind of wrapping up with Adam and I. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to kind of continuing the conversation next time. Give us some comments and feedback, and ask some things you'd like to talk about so we can jump on next time. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thanks all.